Here you go.
Good morning, students. Here we are today. It's already March, and we're going to talk today with Sherry Abendroth. She's the Emergency Management and Transportation Manager at Doctors Hospital at Renaissance. So she has a presentation for you on personal preparedness in case of a disaster. So I want to welcome her, remind you that we are recording this, and if you have any questions, you can either unmute your microphone and ask the question live, or you can go to the chat feature and type in the question, and I'll interrupt Sherry once in a while to tell her any questions that we might have. So I want to welcome Sherry, and the show's yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. As she stated, my name is Sherry. I do emergency management for DHR Health. What that means is I make sure that our organization is prepared so that if anything happens that is going to impact our environment of care, our staff or the staff families, our visitors, I want to make sure we have everything we need to respond to that adequately. Personal preparedness is really important. And if you work in the healthcare industry, you have to know that, for instance, if there's a hurricane coming our way, healthcare workers don't leave. We don't evacuate. We don't get to shelter at home. We have to come to work because we still have patients, and hospitals typically are a place where people are going to seek shelter. They get frightened in their homes. Every place is closed. They don't know where to go. So a lot of people end up landing on our doorstep looking for assistance. So it's kind of all hands on deck. And so it's really, really important for healthcare employees to be prepared personally. So I'm going to go through some things that are really important for you guys to consider. And even now, today, go home and think about some of the things I'm going to show you. And is your family ready? Is your home prepared? Do you have resources that you need? This will apply to everybody across the board. Keep in mind, the timing of this presentation is really good because hurricane season is just a few months away. And there's a big initiative every year to make sure that everybody in their homes, at their workplace, is ready just in case. We never know what's going to happen, so it's a just in case. Be prepared instead of getting caught at the last minute not having what you need. So we're going to get going here. You'll have to bear with me. There we go. So what can happen in our area, in the Valley? When I first moved to the Valley, I'm from Central Texas, and there's this mindset that, oh, nothing's going to happen here. You know, kind of like maybe the Valley is immune to the things going on in the rest of the world, but that's not necessarily true. There's natural disasters, there's industrial accidents that can happen, and then there's man-made violence, man-made disasters that occur. Think about the Boston Marathon bombing. Think about the active shooter events, you know, and I don't know if you guys pay attention to the news, but there's a lot of man-made stuff happening in addition to industrial accidents and natural disasters. So here in Edinburgh, McAllen, where we are, my primary concern is flooding. It doesn't have to be a hurricane, but if a hurricane comes or a tropical storm, or just think about last spring when we had all the heavy rains, we had a lot of flooding. Our land is really dry, and so when we get a lot of water really fast, it tends to stand and pool. It doesn't absorb, so we end up with a lot of flooding. I hope everybody's made it through the floods okay. I'm sure that some of you were probably impacted by the floods. Hopefully nobody got water damage in their homes or lost any property. Industrial accidents, chemical spills. When we talk about industrial accidents, and you look at our area, we don't have big factories and things like that doing assembly. But when you just think about the average retail shopping center that has a nail salon, there's a whole lot of acetone in a nail salon, and acetone is a hazardous chemical. And if they happen to spill or if they got a leak in their containers, that creates a pretty good situation we have to worry about. Swimming pools, we have community swimming pools with chlorine. And if chlorine escapes, its containers and you end up with chlorine gas. That's very deadly. So, when you think about these things, just because we don't have big factories here doesn't mean we can't have chemical spills or other hazardous situations. Trains are coming through all the time. There's pipelines underground carrying product that is hazardous. Utility failures. We have a power outage that lasts for a long period of time. That constitutes a disaster. Transportation failures. Something happens and the roadways are blocked or impassable. Man-made, when we look at man-made, we're looking primarily at violence, bombs, IEDs, active shooters, things like that. And then you have mass casualty events that we consider to be man-made. Again, the Boston Marathon, that's a mass casualty event as well as a terroristic event. As an example here, something that we prepared very heavily for was the holiday parade in the city of McAllen. There's more than 200,000 people that were at that location in a static location for more than 2 hours. So that's a prime opportunity for some type of man-made violence. Anything can happen here. You have to know that, and don't fall into that mindset that, oh, we're in the valley and nothing ever happens here, because it can. It's pretty much a matter of when. Click. So mitigation, the word mitigation are things you can do now to lessen the impact of a disaster, lessen the damage, or lessen the impact on health or life. So one thing, and all the cities here really push it, at your home, you want to keep your trees trimmed and the branches picked up. And when we get into hurricane season, be sure that you don't have a lot of loose debris outside your home, toys and bicycles and lawn furniture and things. When the winds come, those items just fly through the air. So you want to make sure you keep those things kind of at a minimum and cleaned up. Make sure that you frequently are cleaning out rain gutters at your home, or if you have waterways or areas where you have low lying and water tends to pool, make sure you keep it clean and free of debris and leaves, because it's just going to make the water collection worse. At your home or at school or at work, entry doors, the recommendation from FEMA is that entry doors should have 3 hinges, not 2. And if possible, a deadbolt, because that just is going to not only provide more security, but it's also going to help hold the door in place if something bad happens. You want to make an emergency plan for your home. An emergency plan will tell you how you're going to respond, and everybody in the home knows what the plan is. And so everybody's on the same page, and you don't have to worry about what am I going to do when the crisis hits. You're already going to know what the plan is. And then you want to put together a go bag for each member of your household, and you want to create a communication plan so that if y'all get separated from one another, you know who's the point of contact. Where do we call to check in and leave information? I'm okay. Please let everybody else know I'm all right. So we're going to talk about emergency plans, and we're going to talk about go bags, because those are very important for personal preparedness. So making a plan. Disasters change things, and it changes the way you think and how you think clearly and how you make critical decisions in a hurry. You don't have time sometimes to decide how you're going to do it. Are we going to do option A or option B? You need to know right away, very quickly, what you're going to do. So a plan helps you do that. So the first step in putting together a plan is to discuss these 4 questions with family, friends, co-workers, your employers, your teachers. How are you going to receive emergency alerts and warnings? How are you going to know what's going on and stay up to date? For instance, if the TV goes out, cable goes out, satellite we know is not going to work, satellite TV, Dish and those guys. So how are you going to get notifications and keep up to date, right? Do you have a sheltering plan? If you have to shelter in place, you get stuck at school when the storm hits and they're not taking anybody home and the roads are impassable, the schools have a sheltering plan, right? Make sure you have the same kind of plan for your home. What if you get trapped and you can't get out? And so you're just stuck there for the duration of the event. What is your evacuation route? If you can get out, how are you getting out? Which direction are you going to go? Which door is everybody going to use? What roadways are you going to travel to get to wherever your evacuation destination is? And then what is your family or your household communication plan? Those 4 questions are the first step. Step 2 is you need to look at the specific needs in your household. Do you have anybody in your home that's elderly? Do you have infants in your home? Do you have anyone with special needs or disabilities? What about health conditions? Anybody that's using oxygen or other medical equipment that they need in their day-to-day normal activities? Some of the things you want to consider is the age. Are you responsible for assisting other people? Do you have tasks at home that require you to assist other people? If you go into healthcare, that's a big fat yes. Everybody you work with is going to need special assistance. What locations does your family frequent? So that if one family member doesn't make it home, you know where to start looking, right? Dietary needs. Is anybody on a special diet? Or, a heart diet, a cardiac diet, or baby's formula? Do you have enough formula? Medical needs, address that. Cultural and religious considerations. This comes into play really when you're at work. In healthcare, we really have to take into consideration religious beliefs and ethnicity, all the cultures. We are very diverse in the Valley now. We have people from all over the world living here. And it's really important to start learning some of the cultural differences that make up the Valley so that when these events happen, we can accommodate and we can be considerate and not offensive to the variety of cultures here. Pets, family pets. I don't know about you guys, but my dog is my baby. And, I know there's people who have dogs and they're out in the yard, but you got to take care of them. Imagine if there's a flood or a hurricane's coming and all the people in the house evacuate and forget Fido. Poor Fido now is stranded outdoors in the elements with floods and winds and falling debris. Take care of your pets and keep them in mind and make sure that you pack food for them and bedding for them. If they take medications, make sure you get all of that. You have young children in the home, school-aged kids, elementary and middle school kids. You're going to have to provide things for them to do so that they don't get too antsy, too panicky, too afraid. What languages does everybody speak? Does everybody in the household speak English and understand English? Because if there's an evacuation and we leave the Valley, is everybody in the household going to be able to communicate with the rest of the community that they land in during the event? Disabilities and functional needs. Do you have someone that's in a hospital bed? They can't use a regular bed. Access to transportation. Now, if your household, or if you know of a household that does not have access to transportation, right now, today, they need to call 211. 211 is a service in the Valley that will take names and put them on a list for people who need assistance during an evacuation. They will put that whole household on the list, and during an evacuation, someone will come and pick everyone up and transport them out. They may transport them to a mass shelter somewhere until buses can pick them up, but not having transportation doesn't stop people from evacuating. The hitch is you got to call now. You got to get on the list. And every year after hurricane season, they wipe out the list and they start a new one. So every year, if you need transportation, you need to call 211 and get back on that list. Okay? Now, finances, money. We're a world of plastic debit cards and credit cards. I promise you that during a disaster, those things are not going to work. Just like your cell phone. It'll turn on and it'll work, but you're not going to be able to connect. Same thing with banking. Think about it's all based on the internet. You need to have cash. You need to have an envelope with a couple $100 or some traveler's checks stashed away so that if you need access to money and the ATM machines and the banks are down, at least you have some cash so you can buy food or gasoline or whatever, hotel room. Make sure that your family has cash on hand. And then any important documents that you need, insurance documents, proof of ownership of property and homes, medical documents, or any kind of important document, you want to put them in waterproof envelopes and put them in a go bag with you so that you have them. Make copies, seal them in something waterproof, okay? So those are things you want to consider when you're making a plan. So then you're going to go fill out your emergency plan. The best way to do this is if you go to the website ready.gov, that's a FEMA website, and they have all kinds of forms that you can download, and all you have to do is fill in the blanks. There's instructions, and all of this information is on ready.gov. So later on, if you decide you're going to look at it, that's all you got to do. Go to ready.gov and go through it. You can get a family emergency communication guide and plan. They have plans for parents, so that, and it gives you checklists of things to consider for your kids. There's an emergency plan for kids, so that kids can fill out their own plan, right? And then you share that plan between parents and kids to make sure that everybody's on the same page. If you're a commuter, a business commuter, you work outside the valley, there's an emergency plan for that. What are you going to do when something happens back home and you're on your commute? And then there's a plan for pet owners. You're also going to find things like the steps to make a plan, the steps I gave you. How to find resources to get emergency alerts and warnings. And I will tell you that in the valley, depending on what city you live in, if you go to that city's website, most cities have to know that you can sign up to receive warnings. Okay, you want to make sure you get to your critical documents and valuables, and there's a checklist on this website that'll tell you what are considered critical documents. And the checklists are great because you might forget something. Things you own, your prized possessions, you know, how do you document them? You take a picture and make sure you get the serial number and all that good kind of stuff. And then how to put together an emergency financial first aid kit. That's a document that you can download and give it to your folks, or give it to whoever's in charge of the finances, the money for the household. And then there's also a financial protection checklist that you can get for your folks. They're all very valuable tools and resources with checklists. I like checklists. Now let's talk about making a go bag. So a go bag basically is a bag of essential items that you might need to sustain yourself. A lot of people think that when the hurricane comes or when the disaster hits, we don't have to worry FEMA's coming. No, they're not. FEMA's not coming to help respond to the disaster. FEMA's going to come after the disaster is over to help people recover. But you have to be able to survive and take care of yourself before emergency responders can get to you. So imagine that the hurricane hits and Edinburgh is impacted really heavily. Do you think that there's enough EMS personnel, fire personnel, law enforcement to respond to every single household in a quick manner? There's not. They have to prioritize, and they're going to go to the people who are hit the hardest, who have the most damage or the most injury. Therefore, you need to have enough essential supplies on hand to sustain your family and yourself for at least 3 days, 72 hours. 72 is the number, okay? You can put the items in a big duffel bag. You can get those Rubbermaid plastic bins and load them up and put a label on that bin so everybody in the house knows this is our emergency kit, right? And then when you have to evacuate, or if you get stuck and have to shelter in place, you have all that stuff right there to help you, okay? So let's talk about what goes in a go bag. So there's a basic disaster supply list. There's a whole other list of things to consider that are not on here, but this is basic. Water is important. Water is the first resource that we lose. Either the water gets shut off because water lines are broken, or the water gets contaminated and it's not drinkable. So water is critical, okay? To decide how much water you need for 3 days, figure 1 gallon per day per person. So my home, I have myself and my husband. So I need 2 gallons of water for 3 days. I need 6 gallons of water. And that's going to be used for drinking and for sanitation, because you can't flush the toilet, you can't take a shower, so you're going to need water for those kinds of things. Food, you want at least 3 days supply of food that's not perishable, not refrigerated food, not things that are going to go bad. Think about if we have no power, you have no means of cooking food, right? So you're looking at canned goods, and you're looking at dried fruit, you're looking at things that don't get stale, old, or rotten because they're not being prepared quickly or kept cold. You want to get a battery-powered radio or one that's hand cranked. I have a hand crank in case my batteries go out, and you crank the handle really fast and it creates power inside the radio. So you can get AM, FM radio so you can listen to the news. And then some radios also have the weather radio built into it, or you can get a separate one that is just a weather radio. And it sends out those beautiful loud tones when there's a warning coming, so everybody knows to pay attention and listen. You need flashlights. In my go bag, I have flashlights I can hold with my hand, and I have minor lights. I have a headband with the light on it, so that if I'm working and I need my hands, I have a light here, and they look pretty dippy, but I can illuminate and see everything and still use my hands instead of trying to carry stuff and hold my flashlight. I have minor lights. They're perfect. You can pick them up for $5. They're cheap. First aid kit. Make sure you have a good first aid kit. You need gauze, you need Band-Aids, you need some kind of triple antibiotic ointment, maybe some iodine, liquid iodine. You want a warming blanket, those foil warming blankets. You want to make sure that you have ice packs where you just break it and it gets cold. Same thing with heat packs. You just break it and it generates heat. Think about it. You're not going to be able to you're not going to have access to ice. So if you have an injury you need ice for, you want a cold pack. Okay? You need a whistle. You can blow a whistle. And I know you guys, you're young, you have good lungs, you can blow it really, really loud. If you have distress, you can step outside and blow that whistle. Or if it's really dark and everybody's separated and you're trying to find your way back to one another, blow the whistle. Everybody go to the sound of the whistle. So make sure you have, everybody that needs a whistle, they can hang around their neck, okay? Batteries, make sure you have extra batteries for your radios, your flashlights, and all those kinds of things. You might want to consider getting a dust mask like the painters wear. You can get them at Walmart, little white masks. If there's dust or contamination in the air that you're breathing, a dust mask is going to help protect you from contaminated air. You also want to make sure that you have garbage bags with twist ties so that for personal sanitation, you don't want to just like throw your stuff out and litter it. You want to keep it contained. And then with the dust mask, you also want to make sure over here, plastic sheeting and duct tape. That's going to protect your household from the dust, right? Think about your home. It's not airtight. So contaminated air and those kinds of things can get into the structure. So while you're wearing your dust mask, you can hang up sheeting over your doors and windows and seal it with duct tape, okay? Cell phones are critical. And they wear down because, you know, we're playing games and we're on Facebook or doing emails. And during a disaster, how much more time are you going to spend on your phone playing a game because you're bored, you can't do anything else? So make sure that you have extra batteries for your phones, or get a solar-powered charger because you may not have electricity, so that you can at least keep your cell phone charged. Also, your cell phone is going to be a major point of contact, right? Make sure you have local maps of your area. You know where your resources are, and you know where the safe buildings and shelters are. Non-perishable food, canned food, make sure there's no electricity, so make sure you get one of those hand crank can openers. And then wrenches, pliers, hammers, screwdrivers, things you might need. Hang up plywood, turn off utilities, things like that. Make sure you have at least a minimal toolbox with some of those kinds of tools in there, okay? The supply list, you can also get it at the FEMA website or at ready.gov, okay? That's basic supplies. So next, So there's additional items you might want to consider. This is a pretty good list. Medications, if anybody's on prescription medicines, you want to see if you can get an early refill. If there's an impending disaster like a hurricane coming, there's laws that will allow pharmacies to refill your medications prior to a disaster so that you have enough medication to get you through the event, okay? Non-prescription medicines, ibuprofen, aspirin, things for anti-diarrhea, because think about if your water is dirty or you're eating food your body's not used to eating. Glasses, remember your glasses, and cleaner for your glasses. And if you wear contacts, make sure you bring like a little storage containers and enough contact solution. Your babies, if there's babies in your home, they need formula, bottles, diapers, wipes, diaper rash cream, all of those things that you need to take care of an infant. Pet food, make sure when you get a gallon of water for yourself every day, make sure that you get at least as much water for your pet. The pets are going to be distressed. You can't explain what's going on. And pets tend to pant and overheat, so make sure you have at least a gallon of water every day for your pet. Cash and traveler's checks, important documents, sleeping bag, or a blanket and a pillow. What if the roof gets blown off your house and you don't have anywhere to go, the roads are blocked? Make sure that you have tents, sleeping bags, warm blankets, something to help protect yourself. Make sure that you have in your kits a change of clothes, including underwear, and a sturdy pair of shoes with a good sole. What if you're having to walk across debris? Make sure that you have not flip-flops or sandals. Make sure you have a good, sturdy pair of shoes. Household bleach, like bleach where you use to clean your house or put in your laundry. Because if your water gets contaminated, you can use chlorine bleach to clean the water so that it becomes drinkable and usable. If you go on this website, it will tell you how much chlorine per gallon of water to sanitize the water so that you can use it. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher, an ABC rated small red fire extinguisher. Matches, and then you want them to be in a waterproof container. I bet everybody or a lot of you have barbecue pits at home. If you don't have electricity to cook and you have a bunch of meat in the freezer and you have matches that aren't wet, you could have a mass barbecue and cook up all that food instead of letting it go to waste. Feminine supplies for the ladies, mess kits, paper plates, paper cups, plastic utensils. You can't wash dishes, make sure it's paper and plastic, and you have your garbage bag to put all your waste in. Make sure you have a paper and pencil. Put a notepad and a pen or a pencil in your go bag so you can take notes. You might forget to grab something to write with if you're evacuating. Then stuff for the kids, books, games, activities, things they enjoy doing, puzzles, to keep them occupied and entertained. Those items, that last line, are critical. Because the small kids, it's going to be a mess. How you maintain your kit. Once you build your kit, hopefully you never have to use it, but you're going to store it somewhere that's easy to get to, that is cool, it's dry, and make sure everybody in the household knows where the kit is. You want to make sure that any food that you pack in there is tightly closed. About once a month, I check my kit, and if anything is expired, I take it out and I put new ones in. Or if it's close to being expired, I'll take it out and use it and put a new item in. And then every year, you need to rethink your plan. Things change in your household. You have additional people, or some people have moved out, or somebody has developed different needs. So rethink your plan, re-examine your kit, make sure that you update it based on what's happening. I suggest you have a kit at home. When you start working, a kit at work for yourself, and then keep something in your car if you're driving. I have a duffel bag in my car that has all of my personal items. I have extra clothes, I have a spare toothbrush and toothpaste and shampoo, towelettes and wipes to clean with, and it comes in real handy. When you get stranded, it's really nice to know that everybody you're in the room with has a way to get clean. Okay, it's important. So there is, on the FEMA website, a preparedness portal. And there's an app for your phone. If you have a smartphone, you can download the FEMA app. There's educational tools. You can go and learn anything and everything you ever wanted to know about disasters. If you want to know why hurricanes happen, or why tornadoes happen, or why don't we have tornadoes in the valley, it teaches all of that kind of stuff. There are community and personal e-briefs or e-newsletters that just put out new information or updates or things that are happening in the community that deal with preparedness. Google Play has partnered with FEMA and Google Maps. So when there's a disaster, you can go on Google Maps through Google Play and it'll give you new information. They post pictures, they post warnings and alerts that are, when you go look at your address on Google Maps, it'll pop up everything you need to know that's impacting your address or that potentially will impact your address. So it's a pretty cool and big initiative that Google has done with FEMA. There's activities and preparedness events that happen in every community across the world, across the nation, and those are on a calendar at the portal. And then there's stories about individuals, communities, and organizations that participate in preparedness activities. FEMA has started a Are You Ready initiative. You know, a lot of us in America believe the government's going to help us. We don't need to take care of ourselves because the government's going to do it. And that's not true. The government is going to shut down essentially because they have to protect national assets. So the individuals and the individual communities, we have to be ready to take care of ourselves. We have to be resourceful. We have to shoulder the burden until the government gets stabilized, and then they can come help. It's 3 days, 72 hours. Remember that 72 is your magic number. That's typically how long it takes for government assistance to get here and help us, okay? So in conjunction with preparedness initiatives, FEMA has developed a youth preparedness council. Kids that are 8th grade through 11th grade are eligible to be on the council. They like to encourage school-aged kids to get involved in the community preparedness activities, come up with projects with your classmates. There's all kinds of things. And at the Youth Preparedness Council website, they have a list of ideas and things and activities that you can participate in or that you can start up in your community. If your school doesn't already have a plan with go bags and they're not doing education or they're not having fun events that deal with preparedness, you know, if you and your classmates start one of these programs, you could submit it and become a part of this council. They give away scholarships and cash prizes and national recognition, and the youth council members get flown up to Washington, D.C. to meet with Homeland Security advisors and discuss preparedness, and they're honored for the things they've done. So if it's something you're interested in, I highly recommend that you go check it out. Go look at the Preparedness Council and see if it's something you're interested in participating in. That's all I have. Does anybody have questions?
They don't have any questions, and they did change rooms. Let me give them a minute. If anybody has any questions, you can either unmute the microphone on the computer, or you can type it in the group chat off to the side. I want to thank you for joining us today, Sherry. That's very good information, especially a good way for the kids to be able to get involved in making sure that we're prepared anytime in a disaster. I don't see anybody asking questions. Quite a few classes with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Students, thank you for joining us. I'll send out the link to watch the recording later on today. And that's it. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.